Welcome to another episode, of course, of Light Vision Art Q&A. I'm your host, Alfonso Ashworth, and of course, we start the show every Saturday morning from 10 to 11. We have guests that come on the show. We have students that come in the classroom. Of course, in just a few minutes, I'm going to ring the bell for the students to check in. I'm checking the chat room as I speak. We already have one student that's come in class, and we have our special guest waiting in the dark room, of course. And normally you may see this on the screen, but my guest today is Jeremy Holmes. Of course, you can see his website on the bottom of the screen there. It says jeremyholmesphotography.com. If you'd like to visit his website, check out his work. And but right now he's waiting in the dark room. Of course, normally they call it the green room, but in this world, in my world, it's called the dark room. Light Vision Art Q&A was started, of course, and as part of my Light Vision Art brand. I teach photography. I have a class that I teach called Light Vision Art. It's a 16-week course that teaches you to master light. It's always something that I'm proud of, and I like to, of course, like for you to be part of it if you like to. We're signing up students as I speak for the winter class. We just finished the summer class. One of my students is in the chat room now, Claudia Richardson. She finished that class recently, and she has been on a tear when it comes to her photography. But we have a treat for you this morning for sure, and we will be bringing Jeremy on in just a few minutes. We're going to wait for a few more people to get in the classroom. Let's go ahead and let's ring our bell. Let's get started. Of course, that was our bell to get started for the Light Vision Art Q&A. This week, we're going to be discussing one of the topics that we're going to talk about, that we're going to have Jeremy come on in just a few minutes to talk about it, is storm chasing. I met Jeremy early on when we started the Wilson County Photography Guild. Our president at that time was someone named Bobby Todd, and I met Jeremy through Bobby, and it's been a fascination ever since. This guy is very impressive with his photography work. I'm going to show just a few of his images on the screen. And you guys can, if you want to go to his website, like I said, you can go there and check him out. But this is some of his work. This right here, I mean, it's just quite amazing what this guy can do with the camera, the box with the hole in it. And also what he does in Photoshop and infrared photography is just quite astounding. This right here is another shot that, of course, and this is some of his storm chasing work where he's captured storms. And he'll be able to talk to you about those. And then, of course, the cityscape right here over Nashville. So we're going to have him on. Like I said, right now he's still in my dark room. If you want to check in to the classroom, at the moment, we don't have anybody available other than what we normally have in the classroom. Not only Tarpley will probably be signing in just a minute. Just hold on one second. You can't do that on there, Claudia. You can't sign in there. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, I'm also in my lab today. I'm always in the lab. You may hear the phone ring. You may hear machines running. You may hear me talking to someone in the background. But as I said, this is Light Vision Art Q&A. We come on Saturday mornings from 10 to 11. You can come in and you can ask us questions. We will post them on the screen. We'll get you up there. I'm going to go ahead and add Jeremy's website to the page. That way, if anybody wants to get in to his page, they can just go right to the page right here. We're going to add it to the screen, and as you can see, right at the top, it says current topics. It's JeremyHolmesPhotography.com. Also, make sure that you can see that there is a donate button. You can actually donate to this show if you feel led to do so. And of course, we do this because we want to help others, but also it takes time and effort and energy to put the production together, do some of the things we have to do, the website, of course, using the portal for Spreecast, which is very nice, it's very convenient. And if you want to get more involved, you can contact me at lightvisionart.simdiff.com. I will put that up on the screen for you in just a second. That way you can go there. If you want to see what we do, you can go to lightvisionart.simdiff.com and also visit me at my Facebook page, like my page, and also follow me on that page as well. A little bit of something about the box with the hole in it. It's amazing, and it still amazes me what a person can do. We got several visitors in the forum this morning. I guess they coming in. We got 4 visitors in. If you want to be a part of the show, you still want to ask questions and make comments, just go to the viewer question and suggestion section. Put your question or your suggestion in that segment, and I will post it so that others can see your comments or questions. What amazes me about the box with the hole in it? The box with the hole in it or the camera can be just a tool, as we talked about earlier. It's just something you use to, of course, express your imagination, your creativity. And there's something that just triggers a person's creativity once they fall in love with a certain type of art form, whether that be music, whether that be painting, whether that be storytelling, and of course photography and videography. And the person that we're about to bring on, of course, is Jeremy Holmes. And like I said, he's been in my dark room for the last few minutes, but we're going to put Jeremy on the screen. We're going to bring Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Welcome to our Light Vision Art Q&A, and we got students in the classroom, and hopefully they're going to ask questions, but what we're going to do is let you tell the people what you do. What is it that you do that's so fascinating to me?
Well, storm chasing. I started chasing in 2007, and basically every year I just chased more and more, and now I do it 3 months a year, and then hurricanes as they come up. But, storms are my true passion, and it's what I love to do. Nothing like being out in the open plains and watching a storm.
And I was telling the audience how we met. We met through the president of our guild, Bobby Todd.
Yeah.
And you came to our guild group and gave a presentation. And I think you've been back maybe once, twice more since then.
Yeah, I think it's
with the Wilson County Photography Guild.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4.
And if you tell the audience how it is that were you always interested in photography? Is that something that always fascinated you?
Yeah, it did. I can remember back in grade school working in the dark room, and I kind of faded out after high school, and never really picked back up a camera. And of course, at that time, you had to buy film and have a place to develop it or pay someone to do it. So it kind of went by the wayside. And then I think it was 2005, 2006, digital started to kind of come into its own, and I picked up a camera again, and I haven't put it down since then.
Wow, and you said something about film. What it is that you do today, how difficult would it be to do with film?
I don't know that it's necessarily, it would be more difficult without a doubt, but the big thing would be, changing roles in the middle of a storm. That I can see being a major issue. And then, processing, there's people say you can pretty much do just about everything in a darkroom that you can do on a computer. It's maybe a little more complicated. Even, adding stuff in. That was done in darkroom. It can still be, it was done back then. But, you know, I just, something about the computer, one of the things I love is actually sitting down and processing my image. Because a lot of times, you have a vision for an image, but sometimes I end up with something totally different that I didn't expect, that I love. So, I mean, processing the image is just one thing that I love, and I can spend hours processing an image. And sometimes I end up with 5 different versions.
I asked you a question the first time we met, and after the event, I asked you, what did you give up in order to become a storm chaser? And I don't know if you remember your answer. And it sort of fascinated me that you felt like that you really hadn't given up a lot other than your own time and energy and your equipment and what you do. Do you still feel that way today, that it's still something you would do all over again?
Yeah, without a doubt. I definitely would do it over again. I mean, it's, anybody that's into photography, if you think about it, it's kind of an addiction in a way. You mentioned it at the beginning of the show. You fall in love with an art form and you kind of become addicted to it. You want to get better and do the best that you can at it. Storm chasing is another addiction that, I added, to photography. It's just, a great thing that I get to do both together. It's
Right.
wonderful. And, if there wasn't photography, I would still be out there watching a storm. It's an amazing thing to see.
Can anybody become a storm chaser?
Yes, you can. I mean, when I started, I had no idea what I was doing, and I mean, I failed miserably. I failed, but it's just one of those things that experience, and I still fail. Everybody does. You miss storms, you choose the wrong target. It can happen. It's just years of learning, and after my first time I went out, I chased for a month, and I mean, I saw storms, but I didn't see a tornado. I had no idea really where the best part of the storm was, where I needed to set up and really what I was doing. So, I mean, it's kind of a stupid way to start, I guess, but it also taught me that I needed to go back and, refine my skills and actually learn something about it. And, it's kind of the way I am, though. I mean, photography was kind of the same way. I just pick it up and, learn as I go. So I kind of did the same thing with storm chasing.
Tell the audience something about the shot on the screen that I'm showing here. It's the one, of course, where you looks like you're out on the plains.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What? How do you tell us how you actually set that shot up?
Okay. Um, this was actually on the Colorado-Kansas border. I think it was near Tribune, Kansas, where I shot this. And it's an HDR image, which is 3 exposures, correct exposure, and then 2 stops below, 2 stops above, and then I combine that in Photomatics. And basically, this shot, it caught my eye because of the leading lines to the storm. And, in the middle of the plains, I mean, you can kind of take this shot as an example. That's pretty much what you see. There's a lot of nothing out there, which, is a good thing also when you got a storm rolling through. So, you use what you got. A lot of times it's a road. If you come across an old house or an old car, I mean, that's just a big bonus, but it doesn't happen all the time, obviously. But, I just saw the leading lines here and, the sky was just gorgeous. And I mean, still to this day, there wasn't any threat of a tornado there or anything. You've got, basically a shelf cloud. The storm is gusting out. But it's just, still to this day, one of my favorite images. And I think that shot is probably 2008 or 9.
You said danger. You talked about the danger of doing, and the word you didn't use the word danger, but when I see a tornado, I think of the word. The first thing I think of is the Wizard of Oz. Going to Kansas. Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
But tell us the danger. How far away do you really need to be in terms to capture the right image for when you're doing the tornado shot?
It kind of depends on what you're going for. Myself, I enjoy the full structure of the storm, so I want to be, say roughly half a mile away to get, and it's different depending on the size of the storm, obviously, and sometimes I'm right next to them, sometimes I'm a couple miles back. But ideally, quarter to half a mile away where I can get the tornado and the full structure of the storm in the shot is really what I'm looking for. But, doesn't always happen. There's a lot of, you know, uncertainties when chasing. First of all, you don't know when it's going to drop a tornado. You know, you don't know, you know, so it's, and you're moving the whole time. So, you know, your foreground changes constantly. So, and I mean, the roads, sometimes you get cut off by a road and you can't keep up with the storm. And, you know, sometimes you're just too far away from it, depending on where you are. Wyoming's a perfect example. Sometimes 5 miles is the closest you're going to get to any storm unless you're driving through a farmer's field. So, you know, it's not always ideal. And I think
You
that's
know,
one thing that kind of keeps me going is you never know what you're going to get that day.
if you are in the chat room and you have questions for Jeremy, we're ready for his questions. I have posted his website that you can visit because Jeremy is not just a storm chaser. You also are fascinated with old broken down trucks and all sorts of other types of ghost town type images. Tell us
Yeah.
about how you got into doing that, Jeremy.
Um, you know, when I picked up a camera again, that's kind of where I went towards, you know, old houses, old cars, because I'm a car guy, always been my whole life. So, you know, photography, like any other art form, you kind of, you know, do what you love, and cars were one thing that I loved. And, you know, I just kind of leaned towards that. And, you know, that to me is kind of, you know, it's not really storm chasing, but it's kind of an addiction in a way too, because you know that I spend a lot of time in the plains doing that, or out west, and you're driving down a dirt road, and you know you never know what's around the next corner. You see an old car, you see an old house, and you know it's just, I guess, you know, being on the road is one thing that I love. I absolutely love it. So, you know, and you know, usually except for
Which,
storm chasing, if I'm out on the road doing photography, I don't really have a plan of what I'm going to shoot. I kind of just let, you know, things fall where they may. You know, if I get to a T in the road, I might decide to take a left. I might decide to take a right. But then somehow, you know, I always end up at the right spot at the right time a lot of times. You know, sun's setting and I find a perfect thing. And so it just seems to work out a lot of times.
the word infrared frightens most photographers. Now, of course, in my day, we used to shoot with infrared film, and you had to put it on the right setting. You had to get the correct exposure. There was a lot of things that you had to do to shoot infrared. Now, you do a lot of infrared with your camera, and explain to our people in the classroom, how do you set up to do infrared with the digital cameras? Is it complicated?
No, it's not really complicated anymore. It's basically no different than taking a normal picture nowadays, but there's a cost involved. I mean, you have to have a camera converted, and it's, you know, it's a permanent conversion unless you want to pay to have it converted back. Um, but you know, when I started, you know, it's like you mentioned, in the film days. I mean, you might shoot a roll of film in infrared, and you might not get a usable image at all out of that roll of film. I mean,
That's
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 pretty
true.
common. You know, you might shoot several. But nowadays, you know, I started basically because I was so addicted to photography. I wanted to be able to shoot in the morning, shoot all day, and shoot sunset at night. Well, infrared kind of allows you to do that. And, you know, I mean, that's one thing too that I have to mention is, you know, with storm chasing, you have perfect light around these storms at noon, you know, at 3 in the afternoon, whatever time it is, you know, you can get the perfect light around a storm all day long. So it's another thing that allows you to shoot all day long. Oh, but I mean,
Right. I
you know,
have a question. I have a question from someone in the chat room,
yep.
and I'm going to post it on the screen. It says, Natalie Tarpley is asking, in the event of more than one storm in the making, what factors determine which storm you will approach?
Okay. Well, that's a good question. Um, you know, usually the southernmost storm has a good chance of producing a tornado. If you look at, you know, a classic outbreak day, you have supercells lined up, basically a lot of times north to south. You know, the general rule of thumb is you want to be on the southernmost storm, but there's also days, you know, where you have two different environments in two different states. I mean, we had one day this year where we had a setup in Kansas and one in Colorado, and Kansas looked better. All the factors were there. The Cape was higher, the shear was higher, and Kansas was my choice that day. Well, there was a storm that day, but Colorado took the show that day. So sometimes it's just, you never know. You're going to miss it. It's part of it, and it hurts when I miss it, but I still got a beautiful storm that day. But then you see what other storm chasers shot, and you're just, you want to kick yourself. But there's a lot of luck involved too.
I
And then
know.
years,
Yeah, I was going to say it probably has a lot of ambiguity involved when you're out there, whether you go right or left or up or down. But it has to be something to do with your experience, I'm sure. The more you do it, the better chances you have at making something happen, or at least capturing something. And I think I remember once you telling me about, because I know you do some video as well, when you were chasing a storm that happened in, I think it was Alabama. Was that, can you tell the classroom about that storm and what that was about?
Okay, you probably talking
hit
about
the university.
Yeah.
Yes, Tuscaloosa. That's it.
Yeah, that storm was actually, the first time I saw death and destruction. And, I'm out there for beauty of it, and I don't really like seeing that stuff. Of course, nobody really does. But, it's part of it, I guess. And, there's always a conflict. And, a lot of chasers have this conflict. You're out there and you see this stuff, and, you feel bad. And, that was the first time I'd seen anything like that. And that was 2011. And you had Tuscaloosa, you had Joplin that year. That year I just kept seeing it over and over. So, I have to say at the end of that year, I basically took stock of what I was doing and, had to really think about, do I want to continue to do it? And, but, you reason with yourself, I guess, but ultimately that stuff's going to happen whether you're there or not. So by me actually being there, you got to look at the positives. There's a chance, storm chasers are usually first responders. They're first on the scene. There's a chance you can help somebody. You always call the authorities, call 911. We're in contact with the weather service, letting them know what's going on. So, a lot of good comes out of it too. So, and then, but those are the days I don't like. And, it's just, it's horrible what a storm can actually do when it hits a town. It's bad.
Here's another question. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This is another one from Nonnalee Tarper again. She says, in your many years of chasing, do you find yourself gravitating to the same geographical area, or does that differ each year?
No, it's a lot of the same areas. It does differ each year, but you can. There's certain things, and we don't fully understand the environment yet. We still don't really know why one storm tornadoes over another a lot of times. So there's still a lot of stuff to be learned. But yeah, in the early spring, I'm going to find myself in Texas, Oklahoma. The storm systems, they move north. As the year goes on, the jet stream is basically what moves north. So earlier in the spring, you're down south and you kind of work your way up into the Dakotas in June. But, you can go back and forth. I've gone from Texas in one day and then chased in North Dakota the next day. So, it's all over the place. But there are certain areas, depending on what the viewer wanted to know, but there are certain areas that are prone to storms, definitely. Take Moore, Oklahoma. You can't deny how many times Moore, Oklahoma has been hit by tornadoes. There's something about that. There's an area around Denver, they call it the Denver cyclone. It's the same thing. There's always a tornado when the Denver cyclone is in the process around the airport of Denver. There's just certain areas where and that's just, years of experience. So, that goes back to the first question, I guess, of, how do you choose which storm? If you've got a line of storms and there's a storm heading for an area that constantly produces a tornado, that's where I'm headed.
Let me ask you something on my thoughts concerning. I know you do workshops and you allow people, of course, to learn some of the things that you're doing. Mm-hmm. how, how do you normally set up for your workshops? How many people, or do you just take them at a time, or do you actually do where you go at a place and let people come to lecture and do things like that? How do you do that?
Well, depends on what I'm doing. I haven't done as many as I was really hoping to. Time is kind of limited. Um, but I mean,
Right.
I've done and actually might be doing next year some storm chasing photography tours. We're kind of in the works now. Me and another guy have trying to set something up. That's obviously going to be out in the plains. Um, as far as I've only done one infrared workshop, and at the time I had done that at home, and then we went out and shot. And I would like at some point to set up a Nashville workshop, but as of now, I don't have anything on the books to do that. But it's basically what I would do. Say for the infrared workshop, you're going to need certain equipment. As we talked about infrared earlier, you don't necessarily have to convert a
Right.
camera nowadays. You can get an infrared filter just to begin, and that's what I
Right.
did. You can get a filter for I don't know what they're running these days, maybe $150. So it's a lot cheaper than buying a camera and paying 500 or 600 to convert it. To make sure that you like it. So and then a course or a teaching like that is probably a good way to decide if that's really what you want to do too. If you want to invest the money to do something like that.
Well, I'm going to bring somebody else in that she is on my show weekly, and she's also part of our guild group, and she is a very, very good photographer. And we're going to bring Claudia Richardson on and see if she maybe can add to something. How you doing, Claudia?
Good morning. How are you, Al?
Of course, we got Jeremy Holmes on our show this morning, and of course, you've been doing some nighttime type photography as well.
Yes.
Do you have anything you'd like to ask Jeremy or comment?
Um, Actually, Jeremy, that infrared, I don't quite understand. What does it make? How is the difference between a regular picture and infrared? I didn't quite understand that.
Well, there's many forms now that digital infrared has kind of taken over in a way. That one black and white shot, the one before this one that you've got up now, Al, that's actually an infrared shot, but probably not the perfect example. Infrared is basically a light, spectrum that you can't see with your eyes. It's not really, nighttime infrared like most people think. It's not a night vision sort of thing. What it's basically going to do is it's going to turn anything that's green white,
Okay.
but you're not going to really notice it in a black and white picture. But it's going to do, it's going to darken your skies. It's going to darken water. If you think of Ansel Adams, his work, he did a lot of shooting with a red filter for his black and whites, and that's very close to infrared. So, if you get the good contrast in the skies, that's what infrared's going to do. But now, there's a big thing now where everybody's adding color back into the infrared images, so you can get, white leaves, white grass, whatever you want, and then a blue sky back in. And some people like it, some don't. I've played with it some, and for some images it works, and some it doesn't. But I mean, the thing about
Wow.
infrared is you can shoot in midday. Sunlight is infrared, so you can shoot midday infrared photography.
Okay. Is this
Well, I hope
infrared?
that answered it.
Yeah, I got one more. Is this infrared something that's
Okay, go ahead.
applied to a picture afterwards in the photo processing program, Photoshop or somewhere?
It can be, but that's not what I do. I mean, there are infrared filters that you can kind of simulate the look of infrared, but I've actually got a converted camera, so it's shot that way. Most cameras are sensitive to infrared light, and they have a filter that blocks it out. So I have the camera converted. I remove that filter so it only shoots the infrared light.
Okay.
So I don't know if Al, can you pull up a website and put it on screen, Al, or would that?
Yeah, I'll pull up your website, or matter of fact, they could probably go to the link. I've got it posted there. I'll
Yeah,
go to your website, but I can pull up your website. Let me see.
Okay, go to IR
See if
Vision.
I can get you on screen.
Yeah, go to irvisions.com
Okay.
though, because that'll have the infrared stuff on it.
Okay. We're gonna see if we can. Is it IR like
Yep, IR.
the letter I?
Yep, IR, letter
Because
I,
I'm
letter
getting a
R,
website.
visions.com.
Okay. We will see if we can get this, or at least we're gonna add it to our link
What
to
if I
where
put,
you can,
can I type it in at the
yeah, I
bottom?
can see, I can see it. Yeah, I can. Yeah, you can type it in at the bottom, and they can go to that website,
Yep.
and that way it will let them. And I'll post it at the top because I see the website. It's a very good website as well.
Okay.
And I'm going to put that on the screen. Jeremy just added irvisions.com. So if you want to visit that website, and you can see some really cool shots in infrared. And is there any instructional information on that site, Jeremy?
No, there really isn't. I haven't got around to doing that, but I get emails constantly, and I spend enough time doing it that I probably should just add that to the site. It would probably save me a lot of time from answering emails.
Right. I'm going to save an image, and I'm going to post that image just in a second so that others can see it.
Okay.
Because it's quite fascinating what you've been able to do. And let's see if we can get this image on here, because it's one of those images off of the site that you just had on there that's very, very cool. And, you know, if people are not familiar with what you do and how you, of course, process your images, you said something about using certain software. And is this one of the images that was on the site?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's actually
that's very cool
right there.
Yeah. Tell us how you, like you was actually verbally telling us, but tell us the equipment and lenses that you were using at that time.
This shot was done with a converted 5D Mark II, and basically, you know, when you shoot infrared to process the image, you're going to desaturate it, and then, you know, what I do from there, and, you know, the clouds were that white, but the thing that I like about infrared is if you look at the foreground, that was all green. The sky on the left there, that was, you know, a lot lighter, so you get, you know, it darkens the sky, so you get the contrast in the images. But, you know, basically you desaturate the image, and it's not like working on a normal image where you want those colors there, you know, to convert to black and white, because you can work, you know, with those colors. There's really no color other than just a red hue over an image after you shoot it. So you want to get rid of that red hue. And then, you know, after I process the raw, I'm going to take it into Nik software and use their Silver EFX Pro 2 is what I use for my black and white images, and then process it from there. There's just a lot of control with that software.
Well, you know, and of course, hey, that was a great question. That was really cool from Claudia. And we want to thank Claudia, of course, for coming on and being a part of the show this morning. And of course, we have Jeremy Holmes as our guest today. And Jeremy is not only a storm chaser, but he's a great photographer. I think I froze up there. I may have froze on the screen.
You're frozen to me. But
yeah. Let me see. Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're going to switch to another camera. Let's switch over. So as long as you can still hear me, we'll keep on going.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, of course, you as a artist, the tools that you're using are not just the box with the hole in it, the lenses. What type of lenses are you using?
90% of my lenses now are all Canon. And I have kind of always shot Canon, so I kind of have brand loyalty. I do have a couple other lenses that I do like, but most of the time I shoot Canon. I mean, majority of my lenses are wide angle. I shoot the 17 to 40 constantly because of, when shooting a storm, you want to be as wide as you can possibly be. And I've got, a full frame camera, so that helps. Infrared, I probably permanently almost have the 24 to 105 mounted to my infrared camera because it's just a good angle of lens, and it gives you a good range on it. But basically Canon lenses is what I'm shooting nowadays. But I have some older lenses, and Canon's gotten pretty pricey nowadays, so I'll probably stick with them for a while.
Well, speaking of lenses, we've got another guy that I wanted to come on today. Jim Young with We Be Lenses. I can hear him in his background.
Can you hear me now?
Turn the speaker down. I can hear you. Jim is with We Be Lenses, and he went away on me for a second, but he'll be back. Jim is with our guild as well. Hey, Jim. And I think I remember you did come at a time that Jim was with us with We Be Lenses, because they sort of been with us all the way from the beginning. They helped us start the Wilson County Photography Guild. But Jim, of course, rents lenses. And, of course, you want to tell them what you do, Jim, and maybe have a question for our guest this morning?
Well, I've seen Jeremy a couple times at our meetings. He's very entertaining, a really nice fellow, too. But what we do is we rent lenses and cameras for just about any occasion you might want to do. All Canon stuff. Local Lebanon. We have a website, webelenses.com. I don't really have any questions for Jeremy. I just joined the show, so I'm just kind of listening in.
I have a question.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Go ahead, Jeremy. Jeremy's got a question for you.
Sure. Would you rent equipment to a storm chaser?
Sure. May I have your MasterCard number, please?
That leads maybe to the next question, Al, that you see at the bottom. Have you noticed that one?
Yes, I'm getting ready to put it on the screen.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, have you had any equipment damaged in a storm?
Believe it or not, it's there's usually something every year, but it's minor. But 2 years ago, the worst one that I had is, when I'm out shooting and if the storm's not moving really fast and I actually have time to sit still, for say 5 or 10 minutes and let a storm come at me, I'll set up 2 to 3 cameras. I've got an infrared camera, I've got a regular camera, and then sometimes I just set up 2 cameras just to shoot lightning, that are out there, and I got a lightning trigger, and then so I had all these cameras set up, and of course it's pretty windy around a storm a lot of times, and one of the cameras got blown over, and of course it fell lens first and just busted the lens completely. I mean, the glass, everything.
Oh, no.
But that's not the worst part. Well, I mean, that is the worst part, but the sad part is it was less than a week old. So,
wow. I mean, and I know that made you sick.
Yeah, it did make me sick. It did.
Yeah. I think we have a question for Jim. Someone's asking, Myron Browning is asking, do you I guess rent Nikon equipment or lenses, Jim?
No, we only carry Canon at this time. That's the best we can do.
Well, I tell you what, it's a dog eat dog world, that's for sure. And I want to thank Jim for coming on this morning and being a part of the show. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Al.
And he's going to listen in. And of course, we have Jeremy Holmes, storm chaser, videographer, photographer, businessman, adventurer. I mean, you have to be a brave man or a person to chase a storm. We have something we call Lion Chasers. It's a show I do once a week on radio called Lion Chasers. And I don't know if chasing a lion would equate to chasing a tornado, but I'm thinking they both would be equally as challenging.
Yeah,
and
so. Never chased.
I want to ask a basic question. Matter of fact, somebody else is asking another question.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it up on the screen for us. My question says, do you or would you ever take an apprentice with you?
I get asked that a lot, and I normally shy away from it just because I don't want to be responsible for someone else in the vehicle with me. I mean, there are dangers involved. You know, it's it's not out of the question, but if someone's just wanting to learn storm chasing, I would probably consider it if they're actually out there to learn. I took a guy along who basically wasn't there to learn once, and it was just along for the free ride and to get the shots. And yeah, I didn't feel very good about it, so I've kind of limited doing that. But I mean, this year and several years ago, we kind of did a storm chasing tour, but we did it with meteorologists from Belgium. So I've done it, and I'm not totally opposed to it, I guess. But I basically don't make a habit of it, and there's a huge time and money commitment also, if you're going to do this. So I mean, that's one thing to consider.
How much education does a photographer need to get started storm chasing? You mentioned meteorology and the equipment and some of the things you have to know how a storm is going to develop. How much education do you recommend a person have?
Well, I guess that's kind of hard to answer because now I would obviously recommend a lot more study than I had when I first did it. Because until you get out there, it's you probably don't realize what you don't know. But it's a lot more complicated than you think, and it's complicated and it's luck. And I would probably recommend if you just do a basic Google search on storm chasing. There's tons of websites out there that'll help you. There's if someone wants to learn the basics, I'd probably recommend Tim Vasquez, and I don't know off the top of my head how to spell that last name, but he's on Facebook, he's on YouTube. He's also put out a couple books on storm chasing, and that'll give you the very basics to get out there and chase. But as with anything, as with photography, a lot of it is going out and doing it. You learn from your mistakes, but in storm chasing, if you don't know the basics, the mistakes could cost you your life. So you want to know the basics. And I don't know, I guess by basics I would say, if you don't learn actually how to chase the storm and how to stay safe from it, that's going to be your biggest problem. If a storm is moving in one direction, where do you set up, and then where do you set up to get the shot that you want? A lot of storm chasers, and myself included, the bear's cage, they call it, is the place to get the best shot. And that's basically right in the hook of the storm with the tornado coming at you. That's going to get your best shot. But you've also got to have an escape plan. You got to know how fast that storm is moving, and you got to be prepared. Storms don't typically always change direction. But I mean, you look at El Reno, where you had storm chasers killed that day for the first time ever. That storm actually changed direction. So I mean, what we know typically happens, isn't always the case. You got to be prepared and you've got to plan. You've always got to have an escape route every single time. So I mean, you've got to be doing 10 things in your brain at the same time, and then you've got to have a little luck too.
You mentioned that someone lost their life storm chasing. Were you out that day? Were you storm chasing when that happened?
Yes, I was. Yep. Yep, I was. I was basically in the bear's cage, like I just discussed, with the tornado coming at me, and it became very rain wrapped. Let me explain that. When a tornado becomes rain wrapped, it's basically what you think it is. It's wrapped in rain, but as a storm chaser, you lose all visibility of the tornado unless you're basically right next to it. So that's where the rain wrapped storms become very dangerous. You're just in rain and you don't know exactly where the tornado is. I was just far enough ahead of this storm where I could see the edge of the tornado and saw that it changed directions. So I continued east instead of going northeast, which a lot of chasers did not get to see that. So there was a lot of luck involved, I guess, that day for me. Because besides the 3 chasers that got lost their lives that day, there were several other people that were in that storm also that did survive it. So.
And as you stated earlier, this is something that you have to weigh in the balance of what you do as an artist and what you do as a journalist in a way, a photojournalist.
Yeah.
Because you're really trying to tell a story, but at the same time, you're trying to use your skills to capture that image in a way for it to fascinate and to sort of entertain others. I hate to use the word entertain, but you can't help but be entertained when you visit your website. I mean, I go on your website and I just see all the images that you've been able to capture, not just with the storms, but with the landscape, with the composition. All the things that I talk about in the classroom are what I call the little details,
Mm-hmm.
the things that come back to bite you if you don't have your skill sets down, like keeping your equipment maintenance, holding the camera properly, getting your correct exposures. All that stuff has to be done no matter what type of photographer you are. And in your case, you're doing it under some of the most stressful conditions I can even imagine. Like you're saying, in the storm-wrapped event where you don't know where the tornado may pop up. Then at one time you tell me or tell us in the group that you were so many, feet away or so many yards away from a tornado? It was sort of up on you before you realized it? You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was the Binger to Guthrie, Oklahoma tornado in 2011, I think it was. It was an EF5. And basically, the storm was beautiful to begin with. We were south of I-40 in Binger, Oklahoma at the time. And, it was right next to a tornado. It was beautiful, open wheat field. The storm was moving northeast. And the road I'm on, you've got to go north to I-40 and then go east to get back in front of the storm. So, I mean, I was with a buddy at the time, and that's what we did. And basically the storm, by the time we left it to get back in front of it, became rain wrapped. And we basically ended up in the outer edges of the storm. And basically I had the vehicle as fast as it would go to try and stay in front of the storm. So that was kind of a scary moment. And, honestly, that was the day that I had swapped out vehicles and decided I would needed a little bit faster vehicle to be out there in. So next year I swapped out.
I can only imagine being out there and not feel like that you're, maybe that you're in a tin can or something like that. We have one more question that someone wants to ask from Natalie Tarpley. She's asking great questions today. She says, Jeremy, when you be available to visit with our club again, display some of your beautiful pictures. She wants to know when you're coming back to our group again.
Well, I mean, that's up to you guys. The next 3 months, 4 months, I'm kind of doing my other job a lot, so I'm traveling a lot and not in town. So, I mean, ideally, summertime is always best for me. And, I guess early spring before I hit the road, end of February, beginning of, April, depending on the storm season, so, but I mean, I'm available whenever you guys want me, we can usually work it out, so.
Well, I tell you what, we're getting ready to come up on, she's got, I think, one more question before is there a major storm that you regret missing, and which one was it?
Well, there was one this year. It goes back to the Colorado and Kansas day I was mentioning earlier, where I chose to chase Kansas, and Colorado is the one that displayed. And if anybody watches, or follows storm chasing at all, or Weather Channel, there was an image out of Colorado this year where you had double tornadoes and the most basically beautifully structured storm you've probably ever seen in your life. That was the Colorado day, and that was a day that I missed. And I was out there.
Yeah.
So, I was in Kansas on another storm.
Well, it's too bad we cannot clone ourselves. But of course, we just got a few minutes left, and I want to give you an opportunity, one, to tell people how to get in contact with you. Now, we do have one more question. I'm going to let this question get in because this is from Claudia. She was on video earlier. She says, how do you get there with all your equipment?
Well,
good question, Claudia.
Yeah, if I'm just tornado chasing, I drive everywhere that I go. With a hurricane, it's a little bit different because you're flying there. But basically, I use a Honda Pilot, and I've got the seats, folded down. It's 99% of the time just me. Even I've got a guy that I chase with a lot, but we use two separate vehicles just for safety in case something happens to one. You've got another vehicle as a backup. So basically, the SUV, I can fit just about everything I need in the back of that, and usually don't have a problem. So, but for a hurricane, it's a little bit different. So, hurricanes.
So no matter.
Go ahead.
No matter what the circumstances are, you have to build redundancy into your system. So I'm glad you used the word backup, because I have a hard time convincing photographers to make sure they have a backup plan. But of course, we just got a few minutes left on the show, and I want to give you an opportunity, one, to tell people, one, how to get in touch with you, and of course, how to find you on the social media.
Okay. Well, as Al's had my website up there earlier, and that's actually a link to my blog, which I will honestly say that I don't keep up with as much as I should. But there's also links. I've got two other websites, which is the one that I posted earlier. It's irvisions.com. And then I've also got nashvilleskylines.com, which is all my Nashville photography. And then you can find me on Facebook at Jeremy Holmes Photography. Just search that and I'll pop up. I'm also on Twitter. Just search Jeremy Holmes, but I don't really keep up with that much. I'm probably more likely you'll find me on Facebook on my photography page. And I'm also on Instagram. You can search for me on Instagram. So I'm pretty much out there, all the time and all the major ones. So you can usually find me, and there's links on every one of those to, email me and get in contact with me. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, I want to personally thank you for taking your Saturday morning to be a part of this Q&A session. Of course, Light Vision Art, we try to educate our viewers. We try to help them get started with their photography, whatever aspect it may be. And you have been a great help by coming on this morning and letting others know that you can do some of the things that you've always dreamed of. If you want to be a storm chaser, you can go out and do it. Jeremy is a special person, and he exemplifies what it means to be an artist to me. And of course, I want to thank him, and I want to thank him for being a part of my show this morning. And of course, I hope to have him back on again. And we're going to get him back up to our guild group at Wilson County Photography Guild. And of course, you can visit our website. I'm sure Claudia is probably going to post it in just a minute, how to get in touch with our guild group. But we meet the first Monday of every month at the Panturals in Mount Juliet, or we alternate and meet in Lebanon. So thank you, Jeremy Holmes.
Thank you for having me.
And go out there and be safe. All right, man, and be safe out there when you're out. And, of course, we'll be looking forward to some more of your images.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. That was Jeremy Holmes, Storm Chaser. And, of course, if you want to be a part of our guild, you can go to this link just posted by Claudia Richardson at wcpgonline.org. I want to thank Claudia for helping this morning. I want to thank Myron Browning for coming in today, and he also been a part of the show. He said he enjoyed the show, and Claudia also just posted we're going to meet October the 5th at 6:30 at the Panturos in Mount Juliet. Of course, that's on Lebanon Road. Be there. Get there early so that you can order you some food, get you a pizza, spaghetti, or whatever you want to eat. We have a great time. We have others come on to show their images. We have some really good photographers, and I'm looking forward to the meeting this Monday. And of course, uh, Jeremy says that Claudia and I was on the pedestrian bridge. Wow, that's fascinating. That's a pair. And of course, I've been down there a few times and taken people down on the pedestrian bridge. And Jeremy's got some great shots of the Nashville skyline. You guys have to go check that out on his website. And as I stated earlier, I am not just on the Light Vision Art. I do a show weekly that's called Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter, and it's a radio show that I do. It's a 2-hour show, and I'm normally on the show on Wednesdays as his guest host. But you will find me there daily in the chat room that we call the Cherubim. So go there if you want to be a part of our Urban Family Talk group. And of course, every Saturday morning from 10 to 11, unless I post differently, you can find me, of course, at Light Vision Art Q&A. And, you know, it's been a blast today. It's been so much fun because we've had some of the people on that are part of our normal circle, but I know we've had other visitors in the chat room this morning. Not everyone feels comfortable asking questions, and that's okay. As long as we're helping educate you, giving you information that you may be able to use, share with you information that's out there. Visit my website at lightvisionart.simdiff.com, and there is a plethora of information there to help you with tips, videos, shared information that you can find out just about anywhere. If you're on the internet, if you have not figured out how to use Google yet, then you are totally inept on the internet. So you should be able to Google some of the things that we've talked about today as far as storm chasing. If you would like to be a storm chaser, you know, I'm sure Jeremy will give you some additional information if you will contact him through his means of websites. We have someone that's been in the chat room today called Patrick Collins. I want to thank Patrick for coming in. And if he would like to be a part of the show, we come on every week from 10 to 11. So I want to thank you, Patrick. Thanks for being a part of the show. And any others that have been into this show or other shows that we do, you can go to my Spreecast and you can see some of the shows that we've done prior by going to the replay. Go to Spreecast.com, type in Light Vision Art, and you will see the other shows that we've had on prior. Jim Young on with We Be Lenses. He's been on the show. Claudia Richardson has been on the show as a guest, and she comes on regularly, sort of as a producer. She works in the background sometimes, and she helps me out with the show. Natalie Tarpley, she's on as a regular. And we also have others come in and out of this show, quite frankly, all the time. But when we get ready to leave for the day, and that's just going to be in just a minute, I want to thank all of you for being a part of Light Vision Art Q&A. I know it takes out of time. It's Saturday morning. You could be doing many, many other things. But, of course, you wanted to come on and help out with the show. And as I told Jeremy earlier, I mean, he's always been someone that I've been looking forward to because he fascinates me in what he's able to do with his photography. So visit his website at jeremyholmesphotography.com. And I want to thank you guys for being a part of the show. And as I sign off, we normally sign off with a little bit of music. So let's